So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
All right, hanging a deer with the skin on, the hide on, versus off if it's cold enough. You're giving me a smirk, so I'm interested to hear this.
If I see animals being hung with skin on, I get very frustrated, and like I will literally pull my pocket knife out and start to skin it, because the skin is the sole thing that keeps that animal warm, right? It is the outer insulation of your house on that animal. It is full of fat and hair that is designed to trap air and keep that body warm. Well, if you keep a body warm after death, you're just inciting bacterial growth, right? And I will explain this way. I've been on some hunts where, like, we'll kill a deer and they won't gut it, right? And they'll throw it in the walk-in overnight. By the time I get to it the next day, it has gangrene already. It's that quick, yeah. So if you're not skinning your deer... Now, there are circumstances for this, right? If you have a dirty truck bed, right, that you can't, like, you don't want raw meat sitting on, cool, don't skin it, get it home, get it skinned as quick as possible, right? But if you have game bags on you and you're packing out, skin it immediately, basically, because the colder you get that meat, the slower or the faster all of that bacterial growth stops, and the better quality of meat you're going to have, right? And now, people may think that, oh, that seems kind of like a pain in the ass a lot of times, but it's like, you've had my versions of all of the wild game. It's better than most beef, and it's because I really take care of it, So there is a big difference. Like, it's not just going to turn out like, your grandpa's backstrap that's marinated in Italian dressing and grilled until it's a hockey puck anymore. You can have the best meat in the world that you killed if you just review your system, put a couple changes in to have a better quality product.
Yeah, and man, that's super interesting. Johnny, are you listening? He leaves it with the when it's really cold out.
Now, if it's really, really cold out, like if you're 35, if you're below 40 degrees and it's going to stay that way and you're packed with snow and it can be out in the open air like around here, I don't have any qualms about doing it, right? But if it's above 45 degrees, that skin is coming off immediately for me.
Yeah.
But if it's not, but here's the thing too for me. It's also a lot easier to skin an animal when it's warm.
I was just going to say that.
Like, I can rip hide off of it, where when it's cold, it takes me a lot longer to deal with that.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's certain scenarios where, you have to do it. They're few and far between for me, though. But, like, I'm to the point where I'll carry around a gambrel and hoist in my truck bed that plugs into my hitch so I can skin and get stuff on ice immediately if I'm not close to home.
My dad has one of those too, and we've used it on out-of-state hunts so that we could get it, and especially in places where you can't bring, even when you can't bring the deer back, there's
you have to bring deboned meat and stuff.
Or sometimes not even deboned, but as far as like you can bring the quarters back, but not having the spinal column. And then the brain out of it. But anyways, being able to do that, because it's hard if you're in a place where, you go somewhere. It's funny, like, as I'm looking, drew an Iowa tag. The one place I was able to get, I wasn't able to get it for the whole 2 weeks I'm out there, but I got a place that has a barn there and has a I already talked to the lady about being able to hang deer there, and there's already a winch and a hook. I'm like, perfect.
Yep.
Like, that works. So. That's super good information on that. And kind of going into let's say the cooking side of it, or where do you think's the best transition? The actual processing of like cutting it up to freeze it, or would you think just going into the cooking side of it?
I can run through both really quickly.
Okay.
So the way I tend to process now, I make it more family-friendly style, right? Because we try to eat venison all year round. I'm not here to have a little deer treat every now and then. Like, I hunt to survive, essentially, right? Like, I hunt to feed my family. So, my hindquarters, like, I don't cut steaks out of those at all. I will separate all of those out into your whole muscle groups, right? So, your bottom round, top round, your eye round, all of that kind of stuff. And I freeze those individually in whole. So that way, hey, if I want some venison jerky, I can just pull out one of those. I know I can slice that with the grain and get good venison strips. And hey, when it's partially thawed, it's going to slice better for me, right? Yep. And that way, like, I know, hey, this roast isn't going to have a ton of connective tissue in it either because it's just one muscle group, right? Yep. My back straps, I'll either freeze whole or cut them in half and freeze them that way. which I may change that now that we had bear ribs up in Canada. I may start doing some venison ribs that way because those were phenomenal.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But then my front shoulders, I will generally grind. I'll cut, if the deer is big enough, I'll cut some steaks, like a Denver steak, and your flat irons out of it. Granted, you're getting 2 or 3 bites out of a deer for that, but I'm a butcher, so I like those cuts personally. But I'll grind most of that. Same with a neck roast. I may grind that, or I may just freeze that whole, but I will debone it. And then all of my ribs, depending on what I'm doing, I'll just cut most of that off too. So I do it in very large chunks, so that way I can get it processed quickly and get it in the freezer, and then I can do whatever I want with it later. I'm not stuck with 20 pounds of this sausage and, 3 bags of snack sticks and all of this stuff that I have to eat. I can make whatever I want after that. And that's where I think a lot of people should go with processing, is learning how to do it to also be able to cook with it later like you're just getting a hunk of beef. Because that's where I think a lot of people fail, is they get these weird cuts and stuff, and they're like, I don't know, I've never seen a beef steak like this. I don't know how to cook this. Just cook it, man.
Yeah.
Just cook it, and cut it in a way so that way you can work with it later. Because honestly, if you're getting into butchering your own wild game, you're probably getting into cooking it too, because you're sick of the same stuff from the processor, right? So one hand feeds the other, basically, right? If you're learning to process better, learn to cook better. Give yourself a better product to cook with, and you're going to turn out and have food that you're just like, wow, I didn't think I could do this,
Would you, when you're, say, for like steaks and the steak groups, are you freezing that as a whole chunk, or are you actually like pre-slicing them when you freeze them?
So I really don't even cut steaks anymore, but if, say I was to do like backstrap, right, I'll cut medallions out of that sometimes.
Yep.
And essentially treat that like a fillet. And I'll cut those like 2 or 3 inches, but I'll freeze multiple in a pack, so it is like a little fillet.
Yep.
Most of the time, though, I will freeze my backstrap whole, because that's what I like to do, because I love to grill a whole backstrap and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right? That's I like to show off with a lot of the meats that I do, because I can.
Yeah.
Nobody gets a whole grilled backstrap, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I like doing that kind of stuff. But there's times where I'll cut backstraps up in, if it's just for the house, I'll cut them up into 4 or 5 chunks basically. But they're long enough where I know, hey, if I grill that whole, it's essentially a longer version of a tenderloin, right? And I can slice it very nicely like a steak after that.
Yep.
And it's nice and medium rare, and it looks beautiful, Yep.
Yeah. When it comes down to that, how much are you doing much with sous vide?
I have messed with it in the past quite a bit. We've done some wild stuff. Me and my buddy in the Navy cooked a brisket sous vide for 36 hours in a igloo cooler one time.
Really?
And then just grilled it on the grill to finish it. Yeah, it was delicious brisket, but it was pretty ghetto.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, dude, I have messed around a lot with sous vide, and especially with wild game, too. I used to be into it quite a bit.
Yeah, I've been doing it a lot recently. It just with different steaks and stuff, and putting them in that, you always get it, and then searing it.
Yeah.
A lot of times what I'll do is I'll sear it first, and maybe this is not the right way, but you could tell me, but I'd sear it first and then put it in a bag again, and then add whatever seasonings to it, flavors, and then seal it back up, sous vide it, and then sear it one more time.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah.
That's so the cool thing with me, I'm not classically trained in food at all. So I have zero limitations on food, right? So that to me, I'd try it because I'm okay, cool, that searing first builds a huge flavor crust, especially if they're seasoning. You're going to change the overall flavor of the steak.
Yep.
Right? And then another sear again for presentation when it's nice and crispy and it eats better. Right?
Yep.
So a French chef may give you shit for that, but me, I'm no, I honestly, I may try it. You know what I mean? Just I'm and that's how a lot of my recipes come about, those bear ribs, right?
Yeah.
Never cooked them before in my life, and I was okay, I know how to build flavor here, though, right? So I grilled them ahead of time to sear them ahead of time, right? Mm-hmm. Then I threw them in the pressure cooker with a lot of liquid, because I'm that's how I'm going to have to get them tender in 2 hours. I can't do it in an oven. And then I seared them again to, for service, but that was for more of a tenderized rib, you know what I mean? And I do that a lot for roast, too. Especially wild game roast, one of my recent techniques, I will season it, sear it really hard in the pan, and then throw it on the smoker for an hour or two, real low, or I'll even sear it over an open fire, on the Brio pits or something like that. and then smoke it for an hour or two, and then throw it in the crock pot with some beef broth, right? And a little bit more seasoning in there. So that way you're getting multiple compounds of flavor, right? You're getting a nice sear, you're getting smokiness to it, and then you're getting a braise so all your connective tissue can break down. And then what I do is once it's nice and like fork tender, pull it out and I let it cool down. So that way all of my connective tissue congeals again, and I can pick it out really easily, right? You can do it while it's hot if you want to, like it still comes apart, but you make a nice mess of yourself, right?
Yeah.
I do it when it's cold, and then what that lets me do is shred it into nice big chunks too. Because I hate when you get, like, you ever get pulled pork and it just looks like sawdust.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what I'm going for. I want something that looks beautiful when I'm eating this, right? So I can make bigger chunks when it's colder because it's a little bit tighter. But then I'll just go ahead and, like, re-season it and sear it again in the pan. And it turns out, like, one of the best pot roasts people have ever had. And they're like, how'd you do it? And I'm like, well, it took all day and a lot of techniques, but I'll teach you how to do it. But you don't want to have the time to do this, you know?
Yeah.
But that's one of my things is, like, as many ways as you can build flavor, do it. Because that's how I've come up with half of my recipes. And that's why my stuff is so good, I say, because I'm adding flavor at any single detail I can.
Interesting. So through those different steps, through those different processes.
Yep, and that's like understanding what does what too, right? Like what a sear in a pan does, what a sear on a grill does, right? What a broil type of sear does. Like the flavors they bring out and stuff like that, it's all different. And if you're like so when I designed Ricochet Rub, right, that was for I think the second scouting camp.
Yep.
And I would literally cook it different ways to see how the flavors would react, right? So what I can tell you now with that is a butter-basted ricochet steak versus a reverse seared versus a smoked versus a grilled and versus a like ricochet burger. They all taste different, but it's the same rub because the heat methods applied to it and the fats in there are completely different and it changes the flavor profiles.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with your buddies. Leave us a rating, a review, and subscribe. If you want to check out more content like this, there's plenty in the links below. We truly appreciate having you guys along with us.